When I want to play a Sonic game, the main things that I'm looking for are fast levels, a good story, and a cool style. But something extra sometimes slips through the cracks, and that is pure rage. Some bad zones range from just being lame or boring, or being straight up rage-inducing. And we're going to go over some, and at the end I'm going to share with you the one that made me the angriest. Sonic Colors is a pretty easy game, and it's super fun. But even as a 9-year-old, I didn't have much trouble with it. But a game that a 9-year-old me did have a lot of trouble with was Sonic Unleashed. If you watched my videos before, then you know I glaze Sonic Unleashed every chance that I get. But this is not a beginner-friendly game at all. This game really forces you to learn and to improve to get a better rank and gain more EXP. It makes you work for it. And boy did I have to work for it. And as hard as some of the Werehog levels are, especially when you're trying to do platforming when there's no shadow below you, like seriously Sega, come on. And how hard the DLC levels are, the hardest part for me was easily Eggman Land. Everybody talks about how this is one of the hardest, if not the hardest Sonic level of all time, but no one ever talks about how hard it is for a little kid. The amount of times I had to play this level and start from the very beginning over and over again was elite level Rage Bait, before Rage Bait even had a name. This game is definitely not for the weak. I even learned the walk through walls glitch just to skip certain parts of Eggman Land. And I've never even used glitches before in any other games. I learned it just for this one level. Next up, we got the adventure games. And as much as I love the first one, the Big the Cat sections were easily the worst part of this game. I don't really care for Amy or Gamma's gameplay, but Big the Cat makes these parts look like masterpieces of gaming. Everybody in their mom hates these levels, and it's obvious why. The controls are very clunky and specific, and just completely kills the pace of this game. But something that might be even worse are the mech stages and the treasure hunting stages in Adventure 2. I think Adventure 2 is heavily overrated, and people only love it for Shadow and the story. I love the speed sections, but I just don't like 2/3 of the entire game. The Tails levels are a huge downgrade from Adventure 1, but the worst part is easily the treasure hunting levels. I hate them with a burning passion. You can only track one emerald shard at a time, and it's just so boring. In Adventure 1, it's almost the same gameplay, but you can track 3 at the same time, and they didn't take me nearly as long to beat, unlike in Adventure 2. The treasure hunting is the only reason I still haven't beat this game to this day, and every time I have to go back and play one, I just roll my eyes, because all I want to do is just play as Shadow or Sonic. Maybe Sega can remake this game one day and hopefully improve upon these parts, but that probably won't happen until like 2100. But yeah, the entirety of the treasure hunting is the worst part of this game for me, and the most rage-inducing for how lame they are. When it comes to the classic Sonic games, I think Labyrinth Zone is definitely an easy choice. And while it's super slow, super boring, and has an awful boss fight, like come on Sega, why did you think that was a good idea? And I almost picked it as a level that rage baited me the most, but I think a better choice has to be Scrap Brain Zone Act 3. Scrap Brain Zone Acts 1 and 2, while they are definitely frustrating at times, nothing is worse than Act 3. It basically sends us back to Labyrinth Zone for the second time. Not only is it just the same level but worse, but it's also this ugly gray color for whatever reason. I guess they just wanted to do an asset flip. It just felt really lazy and is an all-around bad level. Sonic 2 has 2 specific levels that are pure rage bait, and those 2 levels are easily Metropolis Zone and Death Egg Zone. As I'm sure we all know by now, Metropolis is one of the worst levels in any classic Sonic game. It's annoying, frustrating, the enemies you can barely see attack you before they even come onto the screen, but the worst part is easily the 3rd act. For the entirety of this game, unlike Sonic 1, which had 3 acts per zone, Sonic 2 only has 2 acts per zone. All of them except Metropolis Zone. Imagine finally completing Act 2, thinking that it's finally over, just for Act 3 to appear on your screen. I remember my jaw dropping, and I just had to pause the game and sit there and mentally prepare myself for another act of this rage-inducing zone. But Death Egg Zone definitely takes the cake here in my opinion. You can damage boost your way through Metropolis Zone if you really have to, but you better not even think about getting hit a single time in Death Egg Zone. Not only do you have to fight Silver Sonic first without taking a single hit, then afterwards you have to fight Eggman and the Death Egg Robot, and not take a single hit there either. And if you die to the Death Egg Robot, then you have to do both fights all over again. A Sonic boss fight without a single ring is definitely the most insane thing to deal with at this point, especially as a kid. But Sonic 3 and Knuckles has 2 zones that I dread to this day. Marble Garden Zone isn't the worst thing ever, but it's a zone that I absolutely dread when I want to play Sonic 3 and Knuckles again. It's just kind of boring, and the platforms you have to run on are absolutely so lame. But all of that pales in comparison to Sandopolis Zone. If you thought Labyrinth Zone and Scrap Brain Zone Act 3 were bad, just you wait for Sandopolis Zone. But it's just super lame, and even more boring of a level than Marble Garden Zone. But Act 2? Oh man, does Act 2 freaking suck. Anybody with half a brain agrees that this is probably top 3 worst classic Sonic zones of all time. The boss you fight even before going into the temple is a slow, boring boss. Having to deal with the ghosts and keeping the light on is annoying. Having to push these little lever things to open up certain sections slows you down even more than having to pull these switches that keep the lights on do. And the rising sand is just the cherry on top of this horrible sand cake. This zone, and specifically Act 2, have to go down in classic Sonic history. Hell, I'd even go as far to say Sonic history as one of the worst Sonic zones to ever be made. Okay guys, I'm sorry, my hate for Sandopolis is showing. I think it's time we move on to something else. Sonic Generations is a great game, and when people criticize it for any reason, it's either for the story or for the terrible final boss. And yeah, I'm going to touch on that final boss, but first, I want to take a second to maybe say a hot take here, but I do not like Planet Wisp as the final zone. Now, when I say that I don't like Planet Wisp, I mean the 2D like factory section. The first half is great and even fun, but that second half sucks. It's slow, using the Spikes Wisp is annoying, and when people criticize the Sonic Colors 2D sections, every single one of those issues is in that second half of the zone. And to make it worse, this is then followed up by one of the worst boss fights in Super Sonic history. It kind of just takes a while to beat. It's so easy and simple, which just makes it unbelievably boring for me. But the only Super Sonic boss fight that's worse than this is easily the original final boss fight in Sonic Frontiers. When I said that the Time Eater is one of the worst Super Sonic boss fights, I said that it was one of the worst because the worst has to be the end. The entirety of Sonic Frontiers is filled with the coolest Super Sonic boss fights in the entire series. This is what the Super Sonic boss fights should have always been. As much as I liked the previous ones, you kind of just fly into the enemies and get knocked back and then do it again. But here, you actually get to throw hands with these bosses. There's so much spectacle, and it's just the coolest the Super Sonic boss fights have ever been before, and are easily my favorite part of this game. But the end has got to be the most disappointing boss fight ever. While I don't think the gameplay itself is nearly as bad as the Time Eater boss fight, it's just so freaking easy. And the worst part about it is that they spent the entire game hyping up this final boss, and how not even Super Sonic could beat it. And then it's just the easiest boss of this entire game. And I was playing this game on hard mode too, and I'd say the boss is even worse here because you have to play this little Galaga section, and it just sucks. I'd rather just watch the cutscene like you do in the lower difficulties. I died more times to the first Super Sonic boss fight in this game than the last one. I just gotta say, thank God that we got the DLC that makes up for this horrible ending. But if you played this game before the DLC came out, like I did, then you know it was such a terrible way to end this game. For the next few things that bring rage to me from Sonic games aren't necessarily certain zones or acts, but the gameplay mechanics in certain games. First up, Sonic Advance 2. Anyone who's played this game knows how annoying it is to have to collect the medallions, not only not dying so you don't lose your progress, but having to do the challenge itself, and then doing that again as every single character. And that's all easier said than done, because you are 100% dying in the middle of this, and then have to restart because you lost all your medallions. Unless you know every inch of this game, you will mess up. Sonic Advance 3 only has one annoying gameplay requirement, and that's how you have to have Sonic as your lead character in the third act of certain zones. And while that's not too bad, it's still very annoying, because if you made it there, then you basically just have to play it again, which isn't too bad, but it's kind of annoying having to go back and put Sonic as your lead just to do that same level again. Now, for Sonic Heroes, it's pretty rage baity that you basically have to beat the game 4 times in a row in order to get the true ending, especially the Team Chaotic section. But this game is also home to one of the worst special stages I've ever had to play. It's just so slippery and just annoying to control. But I will say that it is pretty creative, and I wouldn't mind seeing it return, even though it kind of did in Sonic Generations 3DS special stages, and a little bit in Sonic Mania with its special stages. But I'd like to see it return how it's shown in Sonic Heroes. Maybe we'll get a remake one day? Sega? Question mark? Okay, and now, time for the part that you've been waiting for. The Sonic level that's made me the angriest. And that is the special stages from Sonic 2. And more specifically is when you have Tails with you. If you've never played Sonic 2 and you want to unlock Super Sonic, then dear God, do not have Tails with you, because he will make it the most miserable special stage experience that you've ever experienced. Sonic by himself, while it can still be difficult, it's at least doable. But if you have Tails with you, just don't even bother. Or at least play the Sonic Origins version so you can keep retrying over and over again, because you're going to need as many attempts as possible. When Tails is with you, he can pick up rings, which might not seem so bad at first, until you realize that Tails' jump is delayed and he's slower than you. And if he gets hit, which he will, because it gets so difficult to avoid the bombs because it's so quick with his delayed reactions, you can lose an emerald at the very last second when you were just a few rings away from getting that Chaos Emerald. Okay, sorry, I'm speaking from experience here. But please do not try these special stages unless it's Sonic only, or if you can retry these stages with Sonic Origins, or maybe some other not so legal means. But that's all the worst Sonic levels, or Sonic levels that made me the angriest. And let me know what your least favorite Sonic level is in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you for watching.